And that's where it all began for me to even get to where I am now, working with the sickle cell warriors. And I've always had a lot of warriors support my career in college. Actually, I named a warrior. She goes by the name of I believe it's Jasmine Bailey, but a name I named her was Sweet Venom. And she was a poet, and she passed. And a few other warriors will follow my career when I was in college. And they loved my work and me just understanding about how the disease worked, and but how everybody I'm mentioning these phenomenal people, they were poets, they were singers, they were actors, like they were living a life. So I didn't see sickle cell as this like debilitating thing. And from there, it just inspired me to realize that, you know, if I'm gonna write a story, I'm write about the people that I've met, the young women who Colleen O'Reilly, who's married with I think she has 2 children, and she has sickle cell, right? These are people, right? These are not, you know, just on the brink of death type of individuals. I met people, famous poets who are on HBO, you know, people. So I said, well, if I'm going to write this, I'm going to write about people. I'm not going to write about just a virus, just a disease, because that's not who they are. That's just what they have. And that's the way I approached it. So I'm going to begin my screenwriting, a little bit of information about screenwriting. It's going to be a little fun for you all. I broke it down to like 5 different things, because if I have a little over an hour, a little less than an hour, I want to make sure that you guys get the beginnings, right? The first thing is your program that you use, right? I've heard of Celtics. I use Final Draft. Final Draft, I was told the reason why I got it, started using, is the industry standard. But I would tell you this: my first script I wrote on Microsoft Word, right? Microsoft Word has a screenwriting template, and I use Microsoft Word. Nobody even knew. Nobody knew. But the benefit of that, it was free. The bad thing about it is that it was so much more cumbersome to use Microsoft Word than to use something that was industry standard. So I say that the first thing is your program that you use can make the job a lot easier because of the components, or it can make it a lot harder because of the lack thereof. But you first want to make sure that you follow what is industry standard. And what I would say is go with Final Draft. Now, it may be a little expensive to some, but I'll tell you this: there's always a way to get something for a discount. Don't look at the original price and leave it at that. Write to people, say, hey, listen, I'm a screenwriter. I don't have a lot of money. Can you do it for this? Have any discounts? Search the web, keep searching the web and see if there are people that are selling it or whatever the case may be. Find a way to get it. Don't let anybody tell you that this is the only way. Right? But I use Final Draft because it was what I was told is industry standard, and it was so much easier than a Microsoft Word. But if you already have Microsoft Word, just use their template until you have enough money to be able to buy Final Draft. I heard Celtics was free, but someone also told me that Celtics is charging now. But I would follow what I've been using was Final Draft. It makes it a lot easier. The next thing, it goes about following the standard of writing, right? You can go online to YouTube, Vimeo, whatever the case may be, and figure out like what is the standard structure of a film script, right? Like interior, the action, the description of the actors. How do you introduce an actor? Find out the structure, right? You can just Google these things. These things are free. This is free knowledge. Find out the actual structure of how it's supposed to look. Let me tell you why that's important. Because if you hand your script off to someone, which I've had happen a few times, people giving it to me, and it's not in the proper format, right? The structure is not together. It's already going to be given a man. And I agree to read this type of approach, because now somebody's time has to be invested in, you know, skimming through, trying to understand what you wrote, and then giving you pointers on things that they may not have given you a pointer on, because if it was in a proper structure, then it would have made sense. So the second thing is getting the proper format and structure. And you can find that online, just Googling what's the proper format or structure of a film script, right? So you can just understand how it works. right? Why do you have to put the time of day, right? Well, you have to put the time of day because it sets the tone. If somebody's having sex at night versus having sex in day, it's a different energy at night versus during the day. Somebody's getting ready to have kill you at night versus during the day is different. Why? Because at night they can get away with things. It's more mysterious. They can hide in shadows. But during the day, that means there are other people around. So it's probably a lot more chaos because they're reckless. They don't care. The next thing is find your voice, right? So sometimes we'll write a story and we'll try to sound a certain way, right? We want to use what we call the $1,000,000 words, right? To convey a message rather than when you start a conversation with somebody, rather than saying, "Hey, what's up?" of what you would say, right? You would say greetings, but that's not you. And then it doesn't sound right when the actor says it, greetings. But it's a film about somebody, trying to rob somebody over some crack or something, It's like, who says greetings in the hood, right? So maybe a crazy person who's probably on crack, so maybe that would work. But you get the point, right? So you want to focus on you finding your voice and using your voice to tell the story, because what that does is that allows you to be free rather than trying to copy, trying to fit in. You create your own voice, your own story of how you want the character, the film to sound. So now you can move more freely versus trying to sound like something that you're not. And the next one is the characters' voices, right? So so I have a film coming up that we're shooting next week. It's called Karmic Voodoo. And in that film, the woman, she goes through she has different voices. She speaks differently at different times. And sometimes a voice isn't what they say, is what they're doing, right? Because if I'm sitting in front of you, if I'm on a webcam and I'm like this, automatically that says I'm dejected. I'm pulling away from something because I'm not any eye contact or anything.
True.
Right? So the voice, you want to make sure each character has a voice that you've created for them, from the things that they're doing, the things that they're saying, the places that they're in, what they're wearing. All that is part of their voice. If there's a guy who's always in muscle shirts or what have you, like it's written that he's in a muscle shirt or what have you, and he's lifting weights or what have you, and everything that he talks about is about eating right and da-da-da, well, you're going to figure out that he's probably a personal trainer or, some type of fitness enthusiast just from the voice that he has that you created. But you want to make sure characters have these voices so that way it sticks in the viewer's mind or the reader's mind. For instance, not to spoil it, in Crisis, like the short film, so the woman is going through a particular journey. I won't mention so I don't ruin the film. She's going through a particular journey. So the way I wrote her is that she has a different voice throughout the entirety of throughout different scenes, but it all collaborates to make you understand the type of person she is. Because at different times in the day, we could have we could have I would call a different voice, a different dynamic about ourselves. Like for right now, I'm in a position where I'm educating, right? So if somebody just took this moment in the day, they would go, "Oh, Egypt's an educator." But then later on, now when I'm on the computer getting my organizing footage for a film, now, he's a director, right? But that's all the same. Egypt, there's a different voice in that. But at the end of the day, when you bring it all together, you're going, "Oh, he's in the film business," and you're going to understand it because I put it all in the same film in the same day. It all makes sense. So make sure your characters have a voice based off what they wear, what they say, what they're doing. So that way, when the audience looks at them, they can understand them. They can understand what they're doing and why they're doing what they're doing. The next thing is you want to make sure that each scene, each thing that anyone reads is interesting, right? So the film that I wrote, Karmic Voodoo, the first scene, the entire room is blue, and the gentleman is grasping onto his stomach. And he's tossing and turning in the bed, and then the woman is looking at him with a look of disgust, right? So automatically like, what the freak is going on? Why does she look like she wants to spit on him? And why is he holding his stomach and tossing and turning in the bed? What the hell is happening? And why is the room blue? So, but that's interesting. You want things to be interesting so that way it causes the audience to want to pay attention, right? We live in a world where right now someone can be talking or whatever, and then all of a sudden you see this. They're scrolling up, looking at other things. They're doing something else because it's not interesting, right? Man, people right now who care about screenwriting, who care about the art of this particular genre in the film or section of the film world, they may be paying attention. But then there are others who may go, oh well, I don't really care about this right now, and they start scrolling. You have to figure out, how do you write something to make it so interesting that it prevents those people who may not even be interested in what you're saying in the film, interested in the actual film because they just kind of stumbled upon it. But then when they start looking, they go, "Ooh, what is that? Like, why is that happening? Why is he in a tub of blood?" So they can pay attention, because nobody wants to have a film that everyone looks at and goes, "I don't remember anything from that film. I don't even know why I watched it." Right? You want to make sure that it's interesting. Right. So those are the 5 components that I always say is best to start with your film, and I'll make sure I write it to everyone. But start back off, you want to make sure you have the proper program, which again I use Final Draft, but there's Celtics. There's many of them that exist out there too, and there may be some free ones that exist that are industry standard and able to use. I just haven't found it. But again, I used to use Microsoft Word. It was effective, but there was a lot that I had to do myself, that unless you had Final Draft and then had the other one, you wouldn't even know how much more work you're doing using one versus the other. The next one is find the standard in terms of the structure of what a script should look like, because it's important when you're giving it to anyone, especially if you want to be respected. You don't want to give somebody something and you just came off the top of your head and it's really looks like a play, but you're calling it a film script, right? Or it's really a story, right? A short story that you wrote, but you're calling it a film script. The only thing you did is you put the name of the characters, and then you put what the character's saying, and then you did the name again and what have you. So it looks like a weird play thing that you wrote or what have you. You don't want to give that to someone, and then they read it. I'll give you an example. I had a gentleman give me his script, and I'm mad even to this day. It was about like 4 years ago. He gave me a script. He said, "Look at this," and it was so horrible. It was so horrible. I was like, who told you this was good? Like, who lied to you and said, and I'm not saying I'm the greatest writer, but I know what crap looks like. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I take advice from people, even with Crisis, like the brilliant director, Bobby, he was like, "Hey, can we say this instead of that?" And da, da, da. And I was like, "Sure. Yeah, I think that's a better idea." Right. I take correction. But I definitely know what crap looks like. And this was crap. And I was mad that I said yes to reading it, because the time that I invested in reading it, I can't get back. But I want it back, because that was horrible. It was horrible, because I don't want to say it, but it was like elements. It's just, imagine I really love ice cream cake. Like, if you want to get anything from me, just say, "Hey, you know what, man, we got ice cream cake." I'm like, "So what you want me to do again? What you want me to do?" Right? So imagine an ice cream cake with this much ice cream, but it's a big old cake. Like, why did you just put ice cream in the entire cake? So you had like these beautiful elements that were in the film, but it was like in spots. And I was like, well, why would you have that not throughout the entire film? It makes more sense. But anyways, so you want to know the structure. You want to have the template, so that way when you give it to someone, you did your research to know how to do it. You don't have to go to film school. You don't have to spend, hundreds of thousands of dollars to learn how to do that. You can Google it. You can look it up on YouTube, Vimeo, Instagram. There are people that are talk you through. You can contact me and I'll talk you through how to make sure that you structure your script properly. The next thing is make sure that you talk the way you talk, right? Well, whatever you're trying to convey, however those characters talk in your head, you talk that way. Don't focus on again, using these $1 million words to convey something that you're saying. Use what you care, use what you feel that this character would say, right? The next one is make sure the characters' voices are understood based off of what they're wearing, what they're saying, where they are, how they're behaving, all these things. That's all the voice, but you want to make sure each character has a unique voice. And last but definitely not least, make sure every scene is interesting. And that helps you kick butt a little bit when you're writing. So that way you're focused on making sure that even if this script goes nowhere, you at least know that, man, if I would have somebody buy this would be dope. So I have a question. What advice would you give a warrior with writer's block? Well, writer's block, I think, is your brain telling, I believe in God, so, your brain, God telling your brain, you got to experience something before you say what you're going to say next. There's something you're going to experience that's going to help you say what you're going to say next. Just wait. And then your brain takes that from God and says, hey, I'm shutting this down. Shutting it down. And then you shut it down. I'll give you an example. I just got agreed upon to write this trailer for this period piece in Georgia. And I was trying to write it ahead of time, but I couldn't get it. Like, I was just like, what the, okay, and I was like, I remember, God, okay, I'm chill. Yesterday, while I was sleeping, the opening scene is a man's arm with cognac, with something in a cup. It's a little small glass that has something in it. Looks like cognac or what have you. And then in slow motion, he drops it, right? And then the voiceover, what you hear is, it's funny because we didn't even know Granddad was sick. And then it hits the ground. Automatically, that guy who held the cognac died, but also that he was Granddad. Now where are we going? And then it tells a story, yada, yada. But I had to wait until God let me experience something for me to be able to get that message across, right? And that's what it was. So that's how you get over writer's block. Just wait and do something. Just live your life. And God is going to let you experience something that's going to let you go, oh, now I know I couldn't write this. Oh, it makes sense. I had to watch this movie, or I had to watch this video, or I had to do nothing, and I figured it out. The next question is, do you recommend prospective writers to seek out classes or workshop? Yes. And a lot of these things are free. A lot of these things are free. And don't be afraid to do something that's paid as well, because you want to make sure other writers are getting paid too. So there are writers who are very experienced and they charge. You go get on it. They're charging something. I know Shonda Rhimes has something on Masterclass, what have you, and I think it's like $20 or something. Pay for it, right? If you respect this writer and you think this writer is dope and this writer can make your life a lot better because of how phenomenal they are, hey, go ahead and pay for that class, or make sure you sign up for that class. What I would also suggest is you look up scripts of famous movies that you liked. Say, for instance, something from Spike Lee or even like Titanic, which I think was a phenomenal movie, and then read that script, right? Sometimes what you will notice is some scripts leave room for the actors to make it their own, and you want to figure out, like, how did the script do that, right? Like, for instance, right, if the line is, she greets him with a hug, and then she says, "Good morning, baby," right? You wrote in there, "Good morning, baby," right? But you know, as the writer, or this is how you program it as a writer, you know, "Good morning, baby," those words aren't really important. It's the fact that she greets him and says, lets the audience know that it's morning. So she made the actor may talk to the director, or the director may say, "Hey, instead of saying good morning, baby, make another choice," right? But you as the writer knew ahead of time that all I want to be conveyed is that this is morning, and that the wife greeted the husband, because maybe later on the wife is going to poison the husband's breakfast, because when she said "good morning, baby," it let the audience know that this is morning and she's getting him breakfast. But the next day she's going to do the same thing, but now she's going to poison his coffee or something, right? So now the director says, "Hey, make another choice." And then when she says, instead of "good morning, baby," she says, "Morning, my little dumpling. Oh, I see you working out, looking all good. Okay," right? We still got the time of day. We still got the greeting, but now that character made us feel as though she really loves her husband. Like, she's complimenting him and everything. So then when she kills him, it makes the audience go like, "Oh man, why she did that? Thought she loved him." You see what I'm saying? All right. The is there an outline on an internet for how to write, format a script? There's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of templates that you can find on the internet that'll help you do it. And what I would say is, I think you can go on finaldraft.com. I'll type that in for you guys as well. Finaldraft.com. You can go to that website, and they have different tutorials and information on that website as well, where you would potentially buy the program, but also be able to figure out like what the standard is and the format is, because you want to make sure, again, that you follow what the standard looks like, especially if you're talking to somebody in the film industry, because you don't want somebody like me being on a panel somewhere else in the world talking about the script that you sent them and being not necessarily complimentary to what you sent them. Because again, if I could just talk to the guy, right? I mean, I think he used it. I mean, anyways, it was just so horrible. And I've had people pull me to the side and just help me with my scripts. And as I learned more, I realized some people didn't even help me with my script. What they end up doing is they end up just taking my script, giving me, working with me, whatever, but not even telling me that the format was off, what have you. I had to figure that out myself, which is very embarrassing, because and a blessing, because it lets me know I got a lot of people that love me and don't want to hurt my feelings. But also when I look back, I'm like, wait, what the freak? Why did I have this written this way? And somebody should have told me something. So yeah. So anyways, we have any more questions? Let's see. We have any more questions?
I'm actually looking here and on Facebook, because we have some people on Facebook. A lot of people are saying, Egypt, that this information is very, very interesting, and they are, it's some good information that we did. So usually every year in March, we have what we call the summit, where all of our partners get together and we do creative content. You came to one of our summits and you did this whole one-man poetry. And first of all, I had no idea you were going to do it. I was upset because I didn't have my camera ready. But you are more than just a screenwriter. And you're a director, a poet, but you actually do like a one-man stand situation where it's not comedy. What is it like?
It's a one-man show, and it's I call it confessional narrative. It's a mixture of acting, motivational speaking, poetry, and comedy used to educate. So I do a one-man show called Black Men Naked Truth, and the whole show just tells like our side. Like if you look in the world right now, you'll realize that Black men really don't get to tell people like how we feel. It's always somebody else talking about us. Like somebody's always talking about us, and it's weird, but people are listening to whoever that somebody is, right? So heterosexual Black men have really no voice in the world right now, although it looks like it, but we really are, you know, kind of captive. If we are talking, we're saying what everybody else is saying because we're afraid to be honest, right? So I created the show Black Men Naked Truth. They actually, because this black woman told me to do it, she said, we need something for black men. Black men gotta do something. And I was like, you know what? Yes, we do. And then I created it. No, but the art of it is that day that you saw what I did was like I literally wrote that all down. I wrote like the way that I write and the way my brain works. It was just funny. Like I just wrote some notes down and I said, okay, this is what I'm gonna say. And I just wrote it down on a napkin. And then when I was introduced, I just got up and I recited it just the way that my brain pieced it all together. Because again, I believe that when it comes down to like why I even get into these, I call them fights or what have you, educating people about sickle cell or HIV or whatever the case may be, is I say, if I'm going to be in it, right, I want people to pay attention. Because I think that's why a lot of things just don't go the way they need to go, right? It's because we're not paying attention. We got people that are walking around with the disease, and they could be helped. They could be helped with grants, with money to get bone marrow transplant, gene therapy, you know, more research and this, that, could help. But many times we're not paying attention. We're paying attention to the next brightest thing. And to me, it's very imperative that we create opportunities when we speak to people about anything that matters to us, that we recognize that, you know, to us is important, but to them, maybe not so. So what can I say or do to automatically snap them out of whatever trance they're in to make them for that moment pay attention to me and then pay attention to everything that I'm going to say after that initial introduction. And that's how I approach it. So even like with my Black Men Naked Truth One Man show, it's funny. The first thing is I tell a story about black men and what people tell us that we are, and that, you know, that really, the first opening thing I say, it makes the whole audience get on their feet. They're like, this is going to be, yeah, the money I pay for this is going to be dope. So the next question is,
yeah, we got questions in there.
Can you use some of the things you've learned from screenwriting to write a novel? Yes. If you look behind me, about 4 of those books are books I've written, right? So what things that I like, and, you know, funny thing, it could work in reverse. So yes to your question, but it could work in reverse. So I wrote a book called 10 Steps to Get Over Your Ex for Good, right? And yeah, and the book, I took that book and made a film called 5 Steps to Get Over Your Ex for Good, right? And that was how that worked, but it could work the opposite way as well. I could have started off with a script and then came up with a novel or what have you, but it works in the same. It's all up to you and how much you have to say, because it all starts off just with what you have to say. All right. How did you come up with the idea for Crisis? Oh, funny thing, right? Dr. Bailey would definitely hopefully remember this. I was going to, it was some event, I think the second event that I attended with them, because after I first met her. And at this event, I said, hey, we got to do a movie about this, right? And that was a spark. Then later on, talking about the block, God was like, yo, like we got to do something about love, because I was a part of this TV show called Love Is, and it got canceled. And it was such an amazing show. And I said, man, we need like something for love, man, because we ain't got nothing about love. We got love and hip hop. We got all types of TV shows out, but we ain't got nothing about love, nothing that makes you go like, oh my gosh, I'm in love. But Love Is, the TV show, that was important. Like right now in 2020, we need love. Right now we got despair, sadness, confusion. We don't know what the freak's happening. We need love, right? We need something that's going to make melt our heart. Right. So that's what sparked it. I said, all right, well, if I'm going to do this, this is not going to be a sad movie, because I don't believe I didn't meet any sad people with sickle cell yet to meet a boohoo, yet. I haven't met that person. I can't write about that person. It doesn't exist in my life, right? I meet a bunch of people that are trying to live their life. People becoming doctors, running for pageants. That's the type of people I'm meeting. So I can't write. I said I got to write a love story. And that's how the idea came about. I wanted to write a love story. I wanted to write a story that would inspire people to say, man, I want them to win. Because the love story is only powerful when you want both characters to win, right? You, at the end of Titanic, you wanted them to stay together, but that girl was trifling. So we'll talk about that later. But, right, you want the people to win, right? You want the people to stay together, to overcome all odds, right? And that's what I wanted to write. And I believe in the power of love, right? I believe in it. Everything that I write, it's always romance. Everything that I write has romance in it because I believe in love. I'm a child of love. Like I really believe in the romance of a man and a woman coming together, being together forever. Like I believe in that stuff, right? So that's how the idea came about. Would this info be useful for people who podcast or vlog? Yes, because a lot of times when I see podcasts, right? How do I want to say this I'll say it in my voice, bump that. A lot of it is people just coming off the cuff and just talking, right? And it works. But that doesn't mean that's the best way of doing it. You could have your stuff written down and creating a bulletin, not a blueprint, but an outline of what you're going to say, or actually literally write it all out, read it over, and then when you talk, it sounds natural, because it could create a different vibe when people are having these podcasts. Because a lot of podcasts are like people coming up and they're just saying things and they're going, yeah, and what do you think about this, right? So it's not really prepared, but since we're already listening to it and we're just rolling with it, and we follow that particular standard, but that may not always be the best way of going about it, right? So I think these elements still could work for a podcast or vlog. You write it down, you have your structure together, and then you go from there. And then you also Google, other vlogs and podcasts that work and see, does it work because the person who has the blog or vlog is already famous, right? Or do they actually have a good structure that keeps them successful, right? Like I listen to Joe Rogan and I'm thinking, well, Joe Rogan was already famous, like he was already famous. Then he had a blog and vlog. Well, and podcast, but if he would have been just Joe Rogan, this regular guy, would I listen to him? I'm like, well, no. But he was a famous comedian, famous host, famous TV host as well with the not Survivor, when people doing the crazy stuff when they're eating like lizards and stuff, what have you. Like he that made him famous. So then now I want to hear what he's going to say, right? So you want to see if is it their talent that makes them famous, or is it their structure of how they're doing their vlog or podcast. So I would come up with a structure. So it'd be yours. The next one is, how does humor as a tool teach your audience? I believe humor allows people to want to hear more. When you're laughing, when somebody makes you laugh, you want more of that laughter, right? If somebody makes you angry, odds are you don't want more. If somebody makes you cry, you don't want more. But laughter opens people up, so now they want more, right? And when they want more, now you can give them more, but now you're giving them more in the sense of they're like this too, right? So you're going like this and they're waiting for it versus them being like this. But when they laugh, you're crazy. Give me some more. Now you can infuse information, education in that. So that's how humor as a tool works. And what is your writing process? Fear factor, yeah, that is what it's called, fear factor. What is my writing process? To be honest, my writing process is come up with the craziest idea and then start from there. I always come up with the craziest idea that I could think of and then start from there. Like Karmic Voodoo, it's about this girl who gets voodoo put on her boyfriend because she thinks he cheated. come to find out, he didn't cheat. So he's going through all these hallucinations, throwing up. He thinks he dies. He comes back to life, all this other stuff. Turns out at the end of the film, she cheated. So she was a hypocrite, right? But I first thought of it like this crazy premise of an idea. I want somebody to put voodoo on somebody, you know, and I start there, and then it just all trickles down until I get to an ending. So I start from the top, the craziest idea, and then I let my ending come. I want the ending to be just as bold as the beginning. And what reaction do you get to romance writing than inspirational? What reaction do you get to romance writing than inspirational? Well, like sometimes inspirational writing is, like things that you're trying to do to make people get all excited and like empowered or what have you, comes off corny, right? Because many times we kind of attach it to spirituality and then like some of the things you would say, the grittiness of life, the hurdles, the words you would use when you really need to get inspired aren't there because we're trying to be clean sometimes and inspirational. And sometimes even in romance, it gets that little blandness because we don't want to necessarily show sex, or we don't want to show some of the grittiness that comes about in relationships or what have you, or we go over the top with either or, with inspirational or romance. But I think the beauty of romance is that we live in a world that people always want to be in a, goals, or what is it? Love goals, couple goals, type of relationship. We always want to be in this healthy, I can't wait for this person to get home type of vibe. We want that. So romance works. Inspiration, some people like me, like I'm a river. So like inspirational movies, don't really work for me because I'm already motivated. I've read a bunch of books and I just keep going. I'm just keeping going. So it doesn't work for me. But love, like I always want to feel love, right? And I always want to have that idea in my head to keep me going and just exist in the belief that this is, I'm living it in real life, but I want other people to live it too, or what have you. Do you think there is one way of screenwriting that's favored over another genre? No. I think that I remember doing research, and they were saying that horror is like comedy and horror are the top genres because people are always writing horrors, and we see them every year. Like every year, we know there's gonna be a bunch of comedies and a bunch of horrors or what have you. So I think comedy and horror are two of the favorite ones, but also really, really hard to write. Like it's really, really hard to write when you're trying to be funny, because it's not easy to be funny, right? You could say something and it just falls and everyone is like, you don't want that. You definitely don't want that in film either. You want people to look at it and laugh, but you don't want anybody to go, oh, that was supposed to be funny. And you're like, oh shoot, yes. And horror, because it's not even just the writing that makes horror. Right. The funny thing about horror is there's an infusion of the music, the suspense that's derived from how it's filmed, because it could say the girl turns around and all of a sudden Jason's in front of her. But if the director doesn't make sure that the way that he set up his shots, or he or she decided that how they wanted the look to be, that she turned around and then the guy's like right there, then she goes, ah, that's not going to be scary, right? Or you kind of already knew that crap was going to happen, or it's too obvious, predictable. So they're hard to write, but they're gold when it works or what have you. I just watched the thriller horror comedy earlier yesterday, and it was the funniest, stupidest thing ever. Like it was dumb. It was so dumb, but it worked. And I know that junk was hard to write. All right. Do you think about your audience demographic when writing, especially location? Well, no, that's funny. Not all the time though. Like if I'm writing something about like when I was writing Crisis, my audience in my mind was, it was a dual audience. I said I want warriors to look at this and be proud, and then I want people who are either affected or even not affected by sickle cell to look at this and want more. Right? That's how I thought of my audience. But sometimes my my mind goes, well, what does Egypt want? Right? Like what do I find interesting? And then I go from there. So yeah, so it all depends. Does location make a difference in where you show your movie once it's done, or do you do it in your hometown? Also, the other part of the question, do I think about location? It is based on my budget, right? If I have a short film and my budget is like $3,000 and it's only like 3 pages, I'm definitely thinking about the location, right? Because I'm just like, what the freak am I going to do with $3,000? I got to make this sucker work, right? We gotta shoot it here. We gotta use this person's house, and we gotta use locations we can't pay for. So hopefully we don't get caught, you know. So I do think about that, but this dictated by the budget. If I got a budget of like $50,000 to shoot a 3 pager, I'm not thinking about the location because I know whatever it is we can afford it. Um, uh, does location make a difference in where you show your movie once it's done, or do you do it in your hometown? Well, sometimes your hometown is not the best place to show a movie about certain things because I have a movie about Black Wall Street that we get done next month, and Atlanta isn't my hometown. South Florida is my hometown, but I would show it in Atlanta because I believe Atlanta had their own they had Black Wall Streets in South Florida too, but they're a little more removed from the Black community in South Florida, in terms of like that structure. But in Atlanta, their Black Wall Street is still up and running. Auburn Avenue is still up and running, right? So it would be great to show it there at one of the theaters in Atlanta, the museum. It's in my head, but I'll remember it later. But they have a museum in Atlanta. I would show it there. Um, I want a movie written about my life, and I'm trying to use my book as a script to help me out. What's your suggestions with me pitching it to someone? Well, I would look to figure out. I would do research on so the question is, I want a movie written about my life, and I'm trying to use my book as a script to help me out. What's your suggestions with me pitching it to someone? Well, first, what I would say is make sure you do research on what a pitch deck looks like. So I'll write it to you, a pitch deck, right? So in 2020, you want to make sure whatever it is that you're writing, right? If you could attach it to someone already, or whatever whatever it is you're pitching, if you could attach it to someone, say a social media influencer, say, you got a cousin who's friends with Denzel, whatever. I'm throwing, throwing it into the air, what have you, right? Shoot for the moon. You want to make sure that you find a way to make sure this opportunity is lucrative. You having something about your life is great. I mean, there have been movies I've seen about people's lives. I'm like, why do they write a movie about this person's life? Because this person is not interesting, and this movie ain't interesting. But I know they got $50 million for this story thing. I'm dead serious. I'm dead serious. I was like, what the freak? But it's all money. And that's the hardest thing sometimes when I talk to creatives, and I tell them that money really, really matters. This is why a lot of times some of the sorriest ideas get made over and over and over again, because they didn't come at these people like, hey, this is a great idea. They said, hey, this is how it's going to make you money. So when you pitch it to someone, the first thing that has come out of your mouth is how they're going to make their money. Not that this is a great idea, because everyone says that. But who's going to say, hey, I got this mediocre idea I can tell you about? No one. I've never heard anybody say that, right? Make sure whatever idea you have, the first thing that comes out of your mouth is, I got this idea. So say, for instance, it's about your life. Hey, I got this. I wrote this movie about my life, and I'm going to have X, Y, and Z portray me or what have you. And I think that's going to help us make so much money. Huh? What'd you say? Automatically. Huh? What'd you say? Huh? Say it again. Now, if you say something to the effect of, well, I have this brilliant film about my life. It tells my chronicles this, it chronicles that, it chronicles what I went through, and da da da. It's gonna go. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be a dope, great film. But you're asking me for $50 million to talk about your life. How am I gonna make my money back? And once you get to that point, till you realize that you have to figure out that part first, it makes it so much easier. It even helps your writing because when I talked to the when we're doing crisis or whatever, I said if we have any potential investors or sponsors, we can get them product placement and product integration like that. Because I will write them in the film without a blink of an eye. And I've done it on the phone with them. They were like, "Oh, we're talking to this person." I'm like, "Yep," and we'll put them da 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 da. Because if you don't put the business in the forefront, the creative never happens. Like it never happens. Every actor, every director who's ever done anything only was able to do what they were able to do unless it was free, but only was able to do what they were able to do because somebody like me was behind the scenes talking to somebody about money.
Yeah.
That's the only reason it happened. Otherwise, it would never have happened. So first, get a pitch deck. I will write a business plan as well, and make sure when you talk to whoever you're talking to, first let them know how they're going to make their money, how it's going to make money, because now it's interesting. Otherwise, it's just a really interesting story. But I'll give you an example, right? I tell you, yeah, I want to write a movie about, like this ship is called the Titanic. It like sank or what have you, but I want to do it like a love story. I don't even care about it. I like that movie, but I don't even care about it. If you came to me like that, yeah, I mean that's cool. But now you say, listen, got this idea, right? It's a script I wrote about this ship called the Titanic. Oh my gosh, it was amazing, amazing time back in the day. Everybody still talks about this now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Leonardo DiCaprio in it, and he's a hot actor. He's made this amount of money, box office, da da da. He's going to be in it. This will really sell your product. Yeah, yeah. Now they're paying attention. So that's the way I would go about it. And I know we got 2 minutes until we
Yes.
go to the panel. So I thank you all for your time. If you have any other questions, I'll leave my email address for you all so you can email me. I'm not hard to reach, but I am available to help you guys out in your journey. So thank you.
We want to thank you, Egypt, because like you said, we've been on calls after calls after calls,
Mhm.
and the script, when you first sent it to me, I was like, oh, wait a minute, it's a love story. Because yes, I like chick flicks, and so we've had it and we talked about it. And one thing that you said to me that stuck with me throughout this whole process is that we have enough documentaries. We needed something that was in the interest for everybody. It wasn't just for warriors to review and look at. Oh, we got another, sad video or documentary talking about, what we go through. But when you put in there talking about love, and even, and I won't spoil it for you guys, but I've watched the trailer so many times that I'm like, so wait a minute, and I have to remind myself, Sharonda, this is not the film, this is just the trailer, calm down, it's coming. Like, I absolutely love it. I love it. So the reason why I went that way is because we're about to show the trailer before the panel comes on. We're going to show it to the people, and don't judge me because I'm going to be up here talking about as if I haven't seen it again. We have Mr. Bobby Huntley that just came in. He is the director, but I'll introduce everybody in a minute. But let me start moving over our panelists over here so they can be ready when we play it. But y'all,
And while Sharonda does that, and she moves everyone
there
over and get our
she is.
panelists ready,
That's Dr. Bailey, y'all.
super, super glad and excited that we've been able to connect with Egypt. So for those of you that are part of this consortium and those of you that know about it, you know that everything we do starts first as it's something that the community says. Every project, platform, and initiative is first prioritized by the patients and caregivers of the sickle cell community. And we have done a lot that has focused on research and legislation and policy and education to everyone. Just so excited that we've been able to connect with Egypt, and it did grow, as Egypt mentioned, and as Sharonda mentioned. A couple of years ago, Egypt was our keynote at one of the proms we had, and he gave an amazing talk. And we met, I think, at one of our summits, and it's just grown. And we've been able to really focus and highlight the fantastic, fantastic creative side of our community. If you were at the Leadership Summit, you know there's an anthology in the works. There's a project with Heather Avant in the works. There's a lot of very, very cool things. And if you've ever been to a Warriors convention, you know we have the Beauty Within Sickle Cell, Glam Squad, and just you name it. There's someone in the community that's doing something brilliant and creative. And so we're really, really excited. If you've been at any of the summits, you know that Sharonda does a great job, and Smalls before her, and we've had others that have just come in and done a great job with creative content. A lot of what you heard today, I'd love to reach back out and get a few more workshops in the way so that we can learn how to make those decks and how to do these things, because it's important that in the midst of showcasing the science, the technology, the engineering, we also show how very creative our community is. So thank you so much, Egypt. And for those of you that are not aware, that haven't seen it, it was shown for those that attended the summit, but this is the very first time we're premiering to the world the trailer, and we're very, very excited about that. Sharonda?